Hey guys, what is going on? It is Greg O'Gallagher with the Road Trip podcast, and today we have on the founder of Greatest.com, Derek. This is hard. You putting me on the spot here, trying to pronounce your last name. I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say something along the lines of Flanzraich. Flanzraich.
Nailed it. Flanzraich.
Flanzraich. Okay. Awesome.
That's the hardest. That's actually going to be the hardest part of this interview.
This will be the hardest part. Yeah, I feel pretty good about myself right now.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
And normally my pronunciation is off. Like, I mean, naturally I just look at a word and like I remember when I was looking at the word Adonis, I used to pronounce that Adonis, or like facetious. I would say facetious. I pronounce everything wrong. But
those are probably two words like you don't want anyone describing you that way. So you can get away with describing others.
Okay.
It's okay to get that. It's okay to get it wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're not here on this podcast to talk about pronunciation. No, we have some really cool topics today that we're going to cover. And before, I mean, for everyone that has not come across, well, I mean, I think a lot of people have probably come across Greatest.com, but for people that aren't totally familiar with it, what is Greatest.com and why did you start this website?
Yeah, so Greatest is a health and wellness and fitness media startup, and what we do is we produce super high quality content. Every fact cited by a scientific study from PubMed, every article approved by multiple experts if it needs it, super legit. But it's fun and it's friendly and it's down to earth and it's like very mainstream and shareable and actionable. And someone described this the other day as like BuzzFeed but useful. So that's pretty sweet, and I'll take that for now. But I started Greatest because I felt like there wasn't a resource like that. And growing up a big fat kid struggling with my weight, I felt like there wasn't a brand that I could trust on a reliable basis that spoke to me like a normal person just trying to make healthier choices, but also that wasn't trying to define what healthy should look like for me, but letting me define it for myself. I think that was really the key message, which was I don't want you to tell me to look a certain way. I want to feel a certain way, and I want you to help me get there. And I felt like there was a huge opportunity to build a brand that's empowering and positive and inspiring, but still actually trustworthy and reliable whenever you turn to it on a regular basis. So that's where Greatest really came from.
Yeah, and I've already come across it several times on Facebook. Everyone's posting and sharing. It's a great spot. It's a great place that there's awesome content and it's very user friendly and actionable, which is always really really sweet. And so I guess one of the first things I really wanted to talk to you about was, your experiences with getting six-pack abs, because I actually really resonate with kind of what happens. And let's kind of break that down because I think a lot of listeners right now are going to really get a lot of value out of your experience with with making the goal to get six-pack abs and how eventually you decided that maybe six-pack abs wasn't as much as it wasn't like what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So it's obviously maybe the most extreme version of our brand message, but I grew up just like everyone else who's listening to this, seeing get six-pack abs in 6 weeks on the cover of every single magazine. But I'd never known anyone who actually accomplished that. I didn't even know if it was fucking possible. And I decided to use me as a guinea pig and to find out whether it was, what it would take, and I wanted to write the story of what it was really like, because I think big media, which are like all the big media companies or whatever, they say on the cover that they want you to be a certain way in a certain amount of time, but people keep buying the magazine obviously because they don't get there. And so it was trying to figure out, can you actually get there and accomplish that? And so, I did it, right? And every week I wrote about it, and there's a whole series, if you want to look it up, on, how to get six-pack abs in 6 weeks. So I did it, and I didn't do anything crazy, right? I just cut calories and worked out six, seven times a week, and, slept a ton, and was just really, really, really clean about everything. And I dropped to at one point right under 180 pounds, and I weigh now 205, right? So, I lost, and I started then maybe like at 210. So I basically had lost like a lot of fucking weight, and most importantly, right, like body fat, and it sucked. And so the story that I wanted to tell was, hey, like the sacrifices I had to make to accomplish this in such a short period of time are sacrifices that, honestly, I'm not willing to give up. Like, I like guacamole and chips more than I like having six-pack abs. And when I had six-pack abs, I didn't feel particularly different. And look, I think there's nothing actually inherently wrong with having or getting six-pack abs, right? I think I'm using it obviously as an example. What's wrong is trying to, like torture yourself and starve yourself and live an unsustainable lifestyle to accomplish something, I think, in a very short period of time that ultimately like has weird psychological impact and effects long term. I think that's what's weird, and what's frustrating is that that's what everyone like champions and endorses on the cover of all these magazines. So my experience was one that it can totally be done. For someone who's like athletic, like, willing to do it, like, and suffer through it, like, it can be done, but that it caused a lot of really shitty situations in which on July 4th I was eating an arugula salad while everyone was like, fucking eating pizzas and rocking ice cream. And honestly, I wanted to be doing that with them, not because that's important to me, like enjoying and being in a social environment. And so, my conclusion at the end was that I don't need six-pack abs to be happy. That's me, right? And that's my friend group. And in many ways, it sort of affirmed this belief that it's not about the choices you make, it's why you make them. It's I don't have to look like how people look on the cover of a magazine to be happy and healthy. And in fact, when I look like I'm on the cover of the magazine is when I was probably the least healthy and the least happy. And so that was my lesson. And that was sort of the story I was trying to tell. And it had a lot of weird like impacts on me long term, I think still.
Yeah, I've been there. It's funny how in that process you think that the six-pack, we think that the six-pack abs are the answer. The six-pack abs are the answer, and so we're willing to work so hard for them because we tell ourselves once we get those six-pack abs, well,
right,
then we're enough. Then life is gonna be sweet, and in the process we become a slave to the to having our six-pack abs. And so
oh my god, people forget about the fact that you have to like maintain them afterwards,
right?
Which is really hard.
No, that's what happens is well, I mean, if we're reading different articles or reading books on dieting and six packs, it's like they don't paint the picture that once you get there, it's done, it's finished. No one really touches upon the fact that you have that if you just kind of revert back, you're going to lose them. And so 3 years ago, I did like a very intense approach, cutting really fast, and I could never maintain them. And during the whole process, you're right, I had to sacrifice. It wasn't really worth it because if you can't really enjoy social occasions, having fun, getting enough food where you actually feel like, relaxed and you just feel like you're not starving. I mean, it's ultimately not worth it. So I had to cut really slow and take my time, and over the course of a couple of years, go from 13% body fat down to much lower. But yeah, that's the only way I was able to really enjoy to maintain it was just taking it so slow.
Yeah, and it's not like condoning, eat whatever you want and fuck it, right? Like that's not. I don't think that's what we're saying. I think what we're saying is that. So one, people forget about what happens once you reach that point, right? I got six-pack abs. That night I had Shake Shack, which is like a super popular like burger place. That's amazing. And
New York, huh?
Yeah, in New York, and it was like my dream, and I had it. I first of all felt literally the sickest I think I've ever felt in my entire life, and then they were gone. Like less than 12 hours later, the six-pack abs were gone.
Oh,
true story.
Yeah.
And I knew what I had to do to get them back, but in my mind, the way that people become truly healthy, truly fit, and I think a lot of the people that you see on TV or follow on blogs or are influenced by those people have figured out the small, ultimately changes that they can stick with because they actually want to stick with them over a longer period, like built those on one after one, and eventually they look that a certain way, right? And they feel a certain way most of the time when they're getting there. That the thing that tricks, I think, normal people, and I'm a normal person, this happens to me every week. Every week I look at something, I'm like, oh man, wish there was a shortcut. Like, still. And the answer is that the shortcuts are shortcuts because they're not real, genuine results, right? It is shockingly easy to lose weight if you don't eat much, but that is like a really bad disorder and can really hurt you in the long term. I wrote a post that was like a couple of years ago that I did this thing. We call it the experiment, and last year I wrote a post about the after effects of it on my psychology. And not to get like too into it and whiny, which I don't mean to do, but when you have six-pack abs and you look in the mirror, it's different. Like it changes like the way you look at yourself, right? And I remember what I look like when I look like then. Or it changed a lot of my sort of thoughts and feelings around food, right? It's harder for me to enjoy things. I think I'm like recovering, but there was definitely a time period where I like went in very far the other direction because I just felt like I was prohibited from having all these things, and so when now I could have them, I had no reason not to eat them, right? And so, it sort of was like a spiral in the other direction, which actually when I talk to my buddies or anyone I know who's done sort of professional, any kind of like natural bodybuilding or something like that, like they all have this like, oh yeah, I did the competition and then like the next 2 months it was just like Doritos coming out of my mouth for the whole time.
What's funny is neither one of those polar extremes are inherently enjoyable. When you're eating a ton, you feel bad about yourself.
Terrible. Terrible.
You feel guilt. So I mean, it kind of sucks in both directions, and that's what happens. Is when we try an extreme diet or cut really quickly, and we're so obsessed getting to that end goal, we just oscillate back and forth between killing ourselves in the gym and dieting and eating awfully.
But unfortunately, finding balance is not a sexy way of selling anything. And so if I was to be like, hey, man, like, you want six-pack abs in 6 years? You can get it. People would be like,
be balanced.
Yeah, like, here's how you can make one healthier choice a day and improve your path. It's just not like, we as humans, we don't want to hear that. But the truth is, people who get six-pack abs are like in two camps. One of them is they only hang out with trainers and they only hang out with people whose job it is to eat a certain way. So their social atmosphere and their social life is surrounded by people like that. That's awesome, right? The other way is that people work for years to get to a place where they're happy. Some people I think are maybe truly lucky and just have good genetics, but very small percentage of people, for some reason I always think of like surfers, like there are all these surfers who are just like, oh, I'll do surf all day, and you're like, all right, well, that's awesome. But I think there's probably some percentage of people who are just like, that's what their body looks like, and they burn fat crazy fast. But I think for most of us, we've got like those of us with like a relatively normal metabolism that slows down as we age. I think that the only life or get there in a slow but steady way.
Yeah. When I was 14 to 17 were my like easy six-pack years. I was just really active in martial arts and working out, and I would eat healthy, but I'd eat as much as I wanted. Yeah. And it was like no problem, like not a problem. And then 18, that's when the weight could just come on like that if it wanted to.
Yeah, my life is always like that. I grew up like drinking 6 Dr. Peppers a day. So I'm like the big kid who sort of found health and wellness and fitness in a way that sort of started hitting me because it made a bigger difference in my life than just the way I looked. It made me happier, more confident, more efficient, more creative, better at all these organizations I was starting, better as a person, and that became what I believed in. And but it's not until I think the six-pack abs thing in which it really, I think I always kind of fantasized about what it would be to look like that, and now I have like literal photos of me looking like that, and when I look at it, it's like, it's unrecognizable. Like I just look so unhappy, and I was.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably just brings you back to that headspace you were in during that time.
Yeah.
and then it was so short-lived, and it's
So
gone.
short-lived. But there are pictures, and
Right.
that's all that matters. No, I'm kidding.
The pictures,
The
Tinder
truth
pictures.
is, yeah, I look just like that. No, the funny thing about the pictures too is that I had them professionally done
Mhm.
because I was like, oh, I'm doing this, I may as well do it all the way. And they're like super shiny, right? Because I like got a tan and shaved, and I like it looks unreal. And no one is gonna believe me in 5 years that it was me. Like they're all gonna think it was photoshopped. And so
Uh,
even the photos, no one's gonna believe are real.
yeah. Oh God, that is.
My grandkids are gonna be like, whatever, Grandpa. Like you're so full of shit, man.
Oh man, that's too. I will vouch for you. You
Thank
give me,
you.
even
Yeah,
someone
sweet.
call me. I'm like, yeah, this is real.
Definitely. No,
I
I know he did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I stake my reputation on it. And so, I mean, this is exactly why I tell people, it's like, look, if you're not happy now with where you're at, you're never going to be, no matter how ripped you are. So start to, embrace the progress you're making now. And then if you're not enjoying your cut, if you're not enjoying your diet, well, you're never going to if you get there, you're never going to maintain it, and you're probably not going to get there because eventually, I don't know about you, but me, I have minimal willpower. I like food.
Yeah.
And
I'm the
so
same.
I have to find a way to enjoy it, and so no, it's very. I think a lot of people have that same realization that you went through. I mean, I went through it, and then I guess the people that don't kind of make that full bird's view perspective, they kind of just get stuck into that obsession for years and years and years. Posting on Facebook, judging people that like eat French fries, or judging people that didn't work out on a particular day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't stay there.
I mean, I think it's getting better. Like, I think there's a lot more voices and a lot better understanding of how, like, thinking about health in a healthier way is like clearly the better way of thinking about it. I think it's happening, right? And we're seeing more voices. Obviously, greatest, right? So our brand is all about that, right? So we only produce 3 articles a day because they have to be science backed, and they also have to come from the right perspective. And
Only three
there's
articles a day?
yeah, yeah. So we're like pretty obscene in terms of we don't produce that much content, right? Like most people in the space produce 30 or 300 or 3,000, but yeah, we really don't produce much. But when we write something, we want it to be the best article on the subject. But the reason is because we feel like our responsibility, our mission, is to help the world think of health in this healthier way. And we're not the only ones who feel that way, right? Like a rising tide lifts all boats, and the more people that share whether it's me sharing my six-pack ab story, whether it's you sharing like your life stories and the conclusions you've come to, the better. And I think, you'd mentioned we chatted a little before this around like meditation and what's the deal with that. And I just wanted to bring it in because it seems really relevant. It's something that I've taken up relatively recently and gotten, pretty into. I'm a big believer in it, I think, now. And meditation is sort of, the idea is that, or really just any kind of self-awareness, is that there's no answer. Like nobody finds themselves, nobody reaches their, like crazy fitness goal and sticks there and is super satisfied forever and ever. Like, that just doesn't, like it doesn't really happen. It's because it never brings people happiness, because happiness comes from like finding peace in the journey, right? And understanding that some days you're gonna like eat the cake because you're celebrating a birthday, and enjoy that freaking cake instead of sitting there and feeling guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean, by the way, that you always accept the cake or that you eat 30 slices. It just means that like you enjoy the process and you find peace and calm in it, and then suddenly like where you're going is even easier to get to and understand and deal with. Anyway, I think meditation really helps that, because meditation, much like yoga, is a practice, but people forget that like eating healthy and working out are in many ways like practices too. And no one ever is the best at them. And if they are, if you think they're probably lying. They're probably like going home and eating a pint of ice cream because they feel bad about because they can't be perfect. No person is perfect,
Right. No, I mean that's a beautiful point, and that's interesting because your experience with meditation in terms of internalizing this outlook, as far as really being able to enjoy the journey, not getting too obsessed with getting to the end destination, be able to just enjoy it and realize that, look, like, life is now, so I might as well enjoy today, because you never really live in that future. And so I had the very same kind of realization when I started like getting into Eckhart Tolle, listening to books like The Power of Now and New Earth. And so I started to grasp that. Just listening to the audiobooks, just like, whoa. My mind, when I was trying to get six-pack abs a few years ago, my mind was somewhere it should not have been. My mind every day was, oh my God, imagine how awesome life's going to be in 2 months when you're ripped. Oh, you're not good enough right now. You got to get those six-pack abs to be cool. And then it was just torture. It was, and then when you have that look, it goes by so slowly because you're waiting for the future to live your life. And
why, right? And I think that like, so right, meditation is about mindfulness. I think that's ultimately what it's getting at. It's just being mindful. We miss so much because we forget to ask the most important question, which is, why do we actually care in the first place? All I was trying to do with the six-pack abs thing was to like stop people in their tracks who were saying, well, all I need is the six-pack abs and then I'll be happy, right? All I need is I can compromise and suffer and be tortured because my life is going to be awesome when I get there. And the question is why? Like, why do you actually care? And if your reason is a good one, hey, like I want to walk around at the beach. I have a big beach party, and I love the beach, and all my friends seem to have six-pack abs, and I want to fit in, and that's important to me because I want to like pick up chicks like that. That's not a bad it's not a bad why, right? Nor is a why like, hey, I can barely keep up with my kids, and I've been trying so hard when they run up the stairs, and that's why I'm going to get into health, and that's why I'm going to start working out and trying to lift a weight or two. Like the why to me is so much more important than the choices you're making, and if you lose sight of it, or maybe even if you don't think of it, then you end up pursuing goals or going after things that I think often are not actually something that will make you happy when you get there, if you get there.
Right, and so, I mean, maybe people are listening to this conversation right now, maybe they're going to just take a second and be like, you know what, maybe I don't need to have 6% body fat. Maybe what I just really need to do is just develop healthy habits, be getting stronger, more fit in the gym, and just enjoying it and just being balanced. So
yeah, and again, right, it doesn't mean, because I think sometimes when people see balance, moderation, it doesn't mean don't challenge yourself at the gym, and it doesn't mean don't set up good rules and limits around what you eat and what you really want to eat and what you don't, right? I totally do that, right? When I go to the gym, I want to squat more, and when I don't set rules for myself around eating, I'm like you, I eat literally anything that I look at, right? Even if I usually don't like it. I don't really like cake, but if I'm not in a mood where I'm not in a position where I'm focusing, I'll eat the cake. I don't even like it, right? But the idea is that I think we're not saying moderation and balance is key. I'm actually saying that when you set goals and when you set goals for yourself, make sure they're first goals that you really want to achieve for the right reasons. And two, maybe setting out the goals that other people have told you are the goals to get to is a stupid way. Maybe deciding that you want to accomplish X because you saw somebody in a movie who does it, that seems crazy to me. Mm-hmm. Those people have paid trainers and chefs, and their job is to look good and look a certain way. And by the way, that is changing too because it's started becoming so not realistic. How cool is it that now we have celebrities and people who are increasingly talking about the fact that they're normal people and like to eat sometimes,
No, exactly. And these are really important points to grasp. And you can definitely build a great physique and look great and enjoy it, but it takes time. It takes time. It's not 6 weeks and be shredded. And so, but yeah. So I mean, really, I guess the stress right here is really important to understand the true motives behind your goals, and are those motives are those real? Like, is your goal in line with them, or have you just projected a bunch of stuff onto a goal that is fabricated?
Yeah. Right. Or influenced by somebody else, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a huge point. 'Cause I think, yeah, and often, and I think we all are guilty of doing that. I've probably
Oh
done
yeah.
a
I do it
ton.
all. Like when I go to a CrossFit workout, I think CrossFit is like a great example of this, right? So and you know, I have mixed feelings about CrossFit, but it's neither positive nor negative. I think it really depends on the box and how you think about it and what you're doing. But you know, what I find is when I walk into that room, you know that half the people that are in that room are literally incapable of doing the exercise that they're trying to do, and that half of those people are pushing themselves because they want to be just as good as the other guy. I do this all the time, right? We always do this. But you know, the question is like, how do you know when to stop? And a lot of that is just about actually tapping into that motive and tapping into how you're actually feeling. And if people really did that, there'd be a lot less injuries. People would be a lot happier. You know, you don't need to squat a gajillion pounds because the guy, you know, because somebody told you they did it once. You know, but squatting a lot of weight for anyone is really awesome. You know, and the only thing that really ultimately matters is like your relative scale. So again, not about, I think, setting out like big challenges, you know, big like audacious goals for yourself, but I think it's about not setting goals that are being influenced by what other people do, or what you think is the right goal versus what is actually the right goal for you.
Right. I mean, yeah. I'm just trying to think of a way for someone to really put this into action, because I guess, you know, living in our society, in our world, through media and everything, we're constantly told like we're not enough, and that's what advertising thrives on. By us feeling inadequate, we try and buy their product in order to boost our self-esteem.
Yeah, and if you think it's bad for guys, imagine how it is for girls, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think, oh man, like totally, right? I think the problem is that it is very super effective, right? The reason why they put six-pack abs on the cover of the magazine is because every time you walk by, you go, I don't have those yet, but maybe this is the time that I'll figure it out. Or like, maybe it's because I'm not buying enough of these magazines, which is total bullshit, right? But you know, this idea of like, here is the thing you cannot accomplish. We call at Greatest, we call it aspirational, right? Aspirational traditionally has a good sentiment, but in my mind, it's something that's literally unreachable for normal people that is being sold to them as like a thing they can accomplish versus something that's actually inspirational. Someone else doing something that inspires you to actually push yourself harder, as opposed to trying to be something you're not or trying to be what somebody else is saying. So I don't know, maybe actionable thing. You know, I think honestly, like it sounds so weird, but I'm a big believer in like sitting down and thinking through, maybe even writing down, like take your fitness and health goal right now and write why you actually want to accomplish it. Mm-hmm. And I actually think a lot of times, whoever's listening to this, like I think a lot of times, and it's okay, you're going to find that you don't know the answer. It's not something you've actually thought through. And it's just a goal to have a goal. And that, I think, is worth reconsidering.
Right. That's a good point. A goal to have a goal, yeah. Now, I've been doing this exercise, and yeah, it shattered a lot of my beliefs back in the day, because I was training to be like an athlete. I was doing all this conditioning training, trying to improve at all these different athletic measures, and I'm like, wait a second, am I just doing this just to do this? Ultimately, what do I want? Ultimately, I just want to be able to really enjoy my life, be happy, be fit, and you know, have a great physique and be strong if I can make that happen, and I did. But I mean, I didn't have to be able to like break some CrossFit workout of the day score. I didn't really have to be able to have the conditioning to fight 5 rounds of MMA because I don't do that. So let's see what like is really like, you know, what do I want? And so I mean, yeah, that's a really good drill. And I mean, just as we brought up earlier, I mean, if you realize right now that if you can give yourself permission to realize that you're okay right now, you're not broken, you're enough right now, getting six-pack abs, doing this, it's not going to make you, it's not going to, you know, make you whole. If you're enough right now, see, you know, what's going to be a fun journey for you to pursue. Yeah. And yeah, if you're not enjoying it along the way, then what's the point? You got to be able to. So I mean, the obsession that I try and steer people away of, and I know that's something that you kind of are on this in the same respects for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm like so all about it. I think a lot of times what I ask is like, which of your friends are you like think is fucking awesome? Like, which is your buddies is you think is super cool? And is it because of like some kind of way that they look, or is it a way that like, something they wear, or is it because they're just genuinely cool, right? And they're like confident in who they are and calm and like funny or whatever, like whatever it is that like stands out to you about that friend of yours that you're just like, what a cool dude, right? It almost never is the things we think we set up as a goal for ourselves. Like,
Dude,
it almost isn't ever.
that is so true. And funny enough, when you come from the frame of mind that you tell yourself, oh, getting these six-pack abs, I'm going to be awesome, or, getting that freaking Ferrari, yes. Well, now all of a sudden, if you identify with those six-pack abs or the car or whatever it is to make you feel like enough, well, then you kind of become that douchebag that, like, flaunts that shit. And you don't want to be that guy that literally is obsessed with their six-pack or their car, because it says that all you are is your six-pack or all you are is your car. There's no depth.
And to get those, a lot of the times that you have to compromise on everything else that is who you are, right? The other thing that really got me, and I'm in a very serious, like, wonderful relationship right now, is that no girls, like, ask girls, and most girls would be like, whatever. Like, six-pack abs is not something that girls, like, freak out about. Like, they don't really care. They'd much rather be with, like, a guy that actually cares about them and treats them well. Like, they'd much rather be with a guy who's, like, funny. And, like, yeah, I mean, clearly it's not like they want somebody who's, very unhealthy. But I'm always, like, surprised by how, like, the kind of women that you actually want to get with and that you actually want to, like, date and like, hang out with, those women care a lot less about, like, the six-pack abs, It's, like, a very, like, guy thing. Like, we think it matters. But girls don't really care. And, by the way, most of the time you have your shirt. Like, when I had my six-pack abs for that 12 hours, I wanted to, like, run around with my shirt off because nobody fucking knows. Like, right. I could tell you I have six-pack abs now, and you would believe me, right? I don't. They're gone. But, like, nobody really knows. And by the time that someone actually finds out, it's usually too late anyway.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that is classic. Okay, so now let's kind of, we've covered this. You fleshed this out beautifully. This has been pretty damn powerful. I'm super excited for people to listen to this and absorb it. Because now, after listening to this, after knowing the truth, well, now there's no longer going to be that obsession to get there. If you want to get six-pack abs, well, now you can just take your time and enjoy it, because we just told you it's not going to make your life inherently awesome. It's still going to, the
take
same
it from
problems.
Us.
Yeah. Our
lives are way more awesome now.
Yeah. So now I guess the other thing I want to talk to you about is, I know you're a coffee drinker. You enjoy coffee. Me, I couldn't imagine a day that didn't involve 1 cup of black coffee. Sounds scary to me. It sounds like a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
And interestingly, talking to a lot of health nuts and stuff, they hold this belief that coffee is bad for you. Oh, you shouldn't drink coffee. You should be drinking some green tea instead. And so, with greatest.com, you talk about numerous topics, and it's all backed by research and studies. And so, what's the answer? Coffee, is it something that is going to be beneficial for your health, or is it something to cut out? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so the conclusive evidence. So the first thing we're saying is I'm not an expert. I'm a translator, right? And I didn't do these studies myself. And my writers and researchers and our experts have come together on many, many articles, and there is basically irrefutable conclusive evidence at this point that coffee is incredibly good for you. The things that are in it are great for you, and it's like not really a question anymore. There were a lot of things that over the last 30 to 50 years have been have filtered down into sort of the science that people think is true, the classic example, of course, being saturated fat, right? That like, butter is the worst thing on the face of the planet. And coffee is another one. Coffee, it's like acidic, and it makes you, looks like it's a diuretic, so it makes you pee, right? Like those things have somehow been associated with bad for you, but it's not true. And every study they do, and they do a lot of studies in which they give people like way too much coffee, it's amazing. I mean, I think the two potential issues with coffee that are worth noting. So, coffee is good for you, and there's no question right now, based on the science that exists, that that's true. However, the two caveats, I think, one is you can get addicted to coffee in a way that is super unhealthy, and I think some people who rely on, and it probably, if you're sitting around wondering if you're addicted to coffee, you probably are. Like if you're sitting there wondering, that's usually a pretty good rule of thumb that you might have like a slight problem. Again, drinking like 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee is not like a bad thing. It actually probably is going to like lower your percentage of getting like prostate cancer. But it can also like be affecting you in other ways, which is being jittery, elevating stress. It can force you to sleep less. For sure, that definitely affects me. So, that's something to be mindful of. And then the second thing that occurs to me is some people just, it like doesn't do good things for them, right? Like some people are like only tea drinkers, not for health reasons, but because when they drink coffee, like they don't actually enjoy it, which sounds nuts to me, right? Because I'm like you, I mean, I love it, right? But some people, it doesn't like go well with them, And so, I think those are the only two caveats. But like, if you're not drinking coffee because you think it's unhealthy, you're wrong. I mean, literally right now, people, Bulletproof Coffee is sticking it's like a thing of butter, a stick of butter inside of coffee, and calling that healthy for you. So if Dave Asprey's getting away with that, then it's got to be true.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I do not support adding 300 calories of fat to an otherwise appetite-suppressing beverage.
I know. It is, by the way. It's pretty good.
You like it?
I mean, it basically tastes exactly like anything in which you put a stick of butter in. Delicious.
Yeah. I would rather save the butter and smear that all over my potatoes, or just use a bunch of oil to make wedges.
Or literally anything else. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I can enjoy coffee beautifully on its own.
Yeah, my trick is, and it's a trick, I guess, is cinnamon. And that's what really like made the leap for me from using sort of having to put some kind of creamer or milk, and was to sort of embrace the dark coffee, was to only put cinnamon, and it somehow like offsets the flavor, especially early on, enough that it's like, and I love the flavor of cinnamon, but now I drink it black. Sometimes I put cinnamon in, but that like really helped. That's like my sneak tip for like moving away from maybe the coffee that people are drinking before, where they're literally adding sugar and creamer. By the way, that's why coffee is unhealthy, is if you're like adding, whether it's a stick of butter or you're adding like, literal sugar and dairy, or creamer, which is dairy and even worse. Like that stuff can get you, and those calories really add up, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think coffee, all about it.
Yeah. So if someone's listening right now and they're like, they're tired of having people come up to them like, oh, you shouldn't drink coffee, it's bad for you, switch to tea. I mean, what's the script that you would give them in order not that you have to. I mean, what someone else thinks really doesn't have any bearing. But I mean, I guess you have with the coffee. I mean, it's a good high source of antioxidants, and I think a lot of the studies show that across the board it reduces the risk of a lot of different diseases like prostate cancer, diabetes, breast cancer in women. It kind of just goes on and on.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd. I mean, there are few things that have been as researched as coffee. Probably my response would be, like there's been a real change in terms of opinion over the last 20 years in terms of how, scientists think about what's in coffee, and it's like very much a thumbs up. And tea is good for you too. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? But yeah, no, I mean, again, I think you don't want to necessarily, you want to like point people to, sites they can trust and stuff like that. The problem is it's hard to find sites that you trust, right? And obviously that's why we're doing Greatest and building Greatest. But, it is really hard. And I think if you were to search, is coffee good for you? I can't imagine what the results would be in Google search, but I imagine, half would be not as trustworthy as the other half. But there is no doubt currently in like the general science public that like among experts, there's no question. We did an article where we asked basically all 25 top influencers, like health influencers, how they drank their coffee, and they all were like, I love coffee, So it's not like everyone that you can imagine, from Marion Nestle, who like runs food politics, to Adam Bornstein, who used to be the editor of Men's Health and the fitness section. Like they all they all drink coffee and love it. So it's endorsed by everyone now.
Yeah, I one of the reasons I love coffee is just because I like to do intermittent fasting every day, and coffee just makes it so enjoyable, and my thinking is amazing. My cognition on coffee, writing, just doing stuff, getting stuff done is definitely elevated. So it's I only drink.
You do morning fasts?
I do. I usually fast from the morning till about lunch.
Got it. Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, coffee. When I've kind of gone away from it recently, but I used to be that way too, and like definitely coffee. I'm not sure what I would have done, because it's also like a social thing, right? It's a social thing. You do something. We have coffee in our office, so there's no reason to buy it, but everyone still buys coffee, right? And so I was like, why are you doing that? And the answer is it's like a habit. It's something social. There's something like, it's like a part of your experience, is that you go to a Starbucks, or you go to a local coffee shop, or you go somewhere and you get something, and like it's a part of a routine. And so I think you don't need to break out of that routine. You can just make the routine a little healthier and a little better. Like it blows my mind sometimes, the things people order at Starbucks, and I almost sometimes want to be like, is that like really what you want, or is this just the thing you always order? Because whoa, can some of those things be not even remotely healthy for you.
Yeah. Orange mocha frappuccino.
Okay, so those are the best. But no, orange mocha frappuccino is... No, the one that got me the other day was someone was like, I want an 8-pump caramel mocha latte. And...
8 pumps?
Yeah, that's like syrup. They want 8 pumps of syrup, which I imagine in the cup is like half of it is just sugar. It's amazing.
Yeah. And those people are like, how do I lose weight? What do I have to do? First decision, just maybe go down to 2 pumps. Let's start with 2 pumps. Let's change that. Let's just go with coffee.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe that person had worked like the hardest workout they've ever had, and that's their favorite drink ever. So who are we to judge? Like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Let's work out for an hour, destroy ourselves, and then all those calories that we burned at
God, I'm gonna put them into a stupid like sugar drink.
Yeah, let's take them in 5 minutes. Yeah.
I bet it's like when you have Slurpees, man. Like absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah, some people like to work out for an hour and then they like to enjoy it, but I would before I take in 800 whopping calories in a beverage, I would much rather put that in a fucking bowl of frozen yogurt ice cream, which is like huge. But yeah.
No, and I'm the same. Or what I find is that after I work out or whatever, like
go to Shake Shack.
Go to Shake Shack. No, I always feel sick. It's like it's your body wants the good stuff. For sure, but you sure can trick it into wanting the other stuff, and then sugar, man, so readily accessible. I mean, that was what was so hard about this and so isolating about the 6-pack abs. It's not that I was making, probably half the time I was just like making a genuinely healthier choice. The other half of the time, it's like you are stuck in a scenario in which if people ate like that all the time, they would really genuinely be obese, right? But it's just like, if you're social and you go out to stuff, there you are, right? And that's what makes it so hard, is that you do really have to set rules and limits for you, since we're living in a society in which calories and bad things are cheap and everywhere. And so it's hard if you're a normal person with a normal amount of willpower, which I totally am. And so it's hard finding that balance.
Right. And just shifting gears,
Yeah.
we got a little bit of time left, and we've this has just been a high caliber frequency call. Bam, our energy's like boom, 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 boom.
I know, me too. Who needs coffee?
Yeah, seriously. So I mean, we talked about a lot of times people that are obsessed with those six-pack abs. That's all they have. In the last little while, you've built an amazing company, your startup, greatest.com. It's exploded, and there's so many parallels between improving your building a business and getting in great shape, or meeting the desirable mate, what have you. And so what were the keys to really for you to really allow you to build a successful company? Obviously, that could span an entire call and then some in itself. But if there's anything you pick out that really were like, why did this work out? Like, what were you doing that was kind of different?
Yeah. Where I would probably start is saying that, yes, we reach nearly 6 million people every month now, and yes, we've had a lot of success, but it's been an uneven road, and I hope it's just the beginning of a lot. Like, we haven't succeeded by any means. So, I don't want to pretend like I'm like the person who's been there and accomplished it. What I will say is that I forget sometimes how much where I'm at affects my business. And so over the last it's like nearly 3.5 years that I founded Greatest and have been running it. Now we have a team of 14 people. The biggest mistakes that have been made, the biggest challenges that we faced have all been ultimately like personal issues. And so I think in many ways, going back to where we started the conversation around why are you doing this, and where are you at, and aren't you finding peace and happiness in the journey? The thing that made the biggest difference for me was about a year ago when I went on a retreat with a bunch of different CEOs and came away with this line that the job of the CEO is really be the most calm person in the room. And I was not, and sometimes I'm still not, but working on getting there has transformed my business and transformed like our ability to succeed. And in the last few months, we've had a lot of really good news and a lot of really great stuff happening. And I think a large part of it, and I don't mean this is not giving credit to my amazing team. In fact, if anything, it's usually because I get in their way that we don't succeed and accomplish things that we need to. But I think a lot of that was really tied to where I was at. And so I think, returning to this ultimate, I guess, the theme of our chat, which is mindfulness, awareness, self-awareness around where are you? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish ultimately? Are you working in the smartest, best way to accomplish that? If I spend an entire day in my email inbox, which I can, I am doing a disservice to my company. If I sleep 6 hours a night, I come into the office and I'm less good at my job. I'm doing a disservice to my company. If I am super stressed out and don't go to the gym, that affects everybody else who's at the office, right? And I'm doing a disservice to my company. And so I think that, in many ways is like the personal journey of talk to them, they were living really healthy, calm lives. And that's what ultimately was why they were able to, churn out such amazing stuff and make such a big impact. I think that's been my most recent big lesson, if that makes any sense.
You know what? I lost you for the last 30 seconds. Google Plus totally just just cut the conversation from us. I you know, last I heard was, you know, if you're stressed out, you're not working out, then it affects your business, and if you're not getting enough sleep, and then so I guess the final thing that you said there was
Yeah, all I was saying was that the people who I admire most, when I was starting Greatest, I was looking at who the influential people were in the space. When I, you know, and now I've had the have had the amazing opportunity to get to meet a lot of them and talk to a lot of them, and now meet other people who've succeeded and who I really respect and admire. The people who are able to do the best work and have the most success are so calm and cool and are so on the journey. And so I think that's been my biggest bit of realization recently, and probably my biggest advice, which is the sooner you start mindfully going after the journey of figuring out your why, of figuring out why you're doing, you know, how you're best going to be the most effective and build the thing that you want to, the minute you stop working in your business but on your business, I think that's when things start changing, and that's when things turn to the better. And at least that's been my experience.
Right. No, that's very, very powerful advice. And I guess that kind of advice would definitely work extremely well for someone that takes fucking action. That is like they set a goal and they go after it, and they don't let their mind and all the reasons why it won't work out stop them. Like an action taker, if they can do that and then be like calm and really, you know, on the ball and like not be like stressed and freaked out, then they're gonna go places. But I know so many people that could have started, you know, businesses or sites, and literally they're scared just to put their foot in the door.
Yeah, no, I think that's the prereq, right?
Right.
You know, at Greatest, when we're hiring people, we look for people with like a, you know, JFDI mentality, like just fucking do it. And I think, unfortunately, that's not enough. I used to think it was, honestly. You know, like there is nothing I can't figure out how to do, and I work extremely hard. But it's just not enough. Like it won't get you far enough unless you then stop, pause, and really think through, what am I doing actually, and how can I work smarter rather than harder, and what do I need to, how much sleep do I need to get, and what do I need to eat, and how do I need to be at my best, and to build the thing I want to build. And so I think, you know, yeah. And then, yeah, I think why, right? And it moves the same way too. Like I don't think starting a company is for everyone. I actually think most people, I'm not sure I would wish this on like my worst enemy. It's super hard. Anyone who's created something that reaches people and is, you know, knows, as you know, how hard it is. And it can also be amazing and fulfilling, and I love every second of it. But it's, again, like, why do you actually want to do this? Do you want to do this because it sounds cool and your job sucks? Maybe you should just get another job. Or do you want to do this because this is like what you were meant to do, you know? And this is the difference you're meant to make in this world. And these are very different, you know, very different sort of whys and motives.
Mm-hmm. And so before we wrap up, how, if anyone wants to start doing meditation, because I mean, if you take a look on PubMed, the amount of research on the benefits of meditation for so many different things is
more than coffee.
More than coffee. It's crazy. It's
crazy.
And it only takes like how long? Like it only takes like 20 minutes a day, or 10 minutes a day, or 5 minutes a day.
I do 5 to 10.
5 to 10 minutes. So if someone listening wants to start doing meditation, how would you start? Like, yeah,
so I would recommend you download a couple apps. Headspace is a great one, and Calm.com is another one. I've used both. I would highly recommend them. You know, they're very good, like, entry points. You know, it's also really easy, and I think what people forget, it sounds so, like, woo-woo and hard, but, you know, in many ways, meditation is actually just about, like, sitting there and listening to your breath and being mindful and present. And so you can literally meditate right now if you just think about where you are and like where am I right now, and not when is my next meeting and where am I headed to next. And so meditation doesn't have to be like a hard, like, spiritual thing. It can be really simple. For me, 5 to 10 minutes of like literally listening to my breath literally changes my day. I'm not joking. When I don't do it now, and I've only done it for like 2, 3, maybe 4 months, pretty like regularly. When I don't, my day is worse, and my mind is like kind of less clear and more foggy. And so I'm a big believer. Meditation, it's crazy.
Right. It's almost like you have better like physiological control over your mind.
Mm,
You just calm
totally.
it. Yeah, because I mean, sometimes I get caught in my like thought loops, and then just like, wait, how do I get out of here? How do I just
Yeah.
enjoy this moment? How do I just focus? Or yeah, and so no, it's very very cool. So that was Headspace and calm.com. That was
Calm.com. Yeah,
calm.com. Okay, very cool.
that is the
Well,
truth.
yeah, well, Derek, it's been a blast having you
Yeah,
on.
man,
We
absolutely.
This has been sweet. I'm excited
Yeah.
to just listen to this episode again. And so for anyone that wants to check out Derek's site, it's greatest.com, greatist.com, not EST, that's IST. And they can go over there.
You don't have to be the greatest all the time, but you can be just a greatest and make healthier choices some of the time. So it's so in line with what we were saying before.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't even see that. I like that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you soon on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.